Hello, and welcome to the Cat and Sam show. I'm here with my bestie, Sam. How you doing there, sweetie?
I'm good, Kat. How are you? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I was thinking about how we've had our 16 days of activism, and we've had the World Cup, and we've had this flurry of awareness from like White Ribbon and the Football Association over here. Lots of campaigns, but that sort of dies down. And I was looking and reading about domestic violence in sports itself, and I'll have to read this to you. Domestic violence among athletes specifically occurs off the field and is most often perpetrated by collegiate and professional athletes. It's the most common off-field crime that affects sports administration. Efforts are undertaken by sporting leagues, governments, and viewers to address domestic violence incidents committed by athletes that come into the sporting public's attention. And I think this is quite an interesting angle, because it said most prominent have been instances of domestic violence that are reported as being perpetrated by members of the NFL. But it's largely to the immense popularity of the sport in the United States and the role models the sports participants are expected to be. But so this is when it sort of harks back to our conversation about leadership. And it's the same with the police over here. And this sort of runs through leadership and competition within these organisations, where if there's a popularity, it's ignored and brushed off. The only ones that really come to the surface and that are talked about, and then it's like, oh, that's terribly shocking. Like, oh, it's one bad apple in the police. Oh, that's horrifically shocking when a sports personality has been caught. The domestic violence in and rape and everything in football is enormous. But the so few are held accountable basically, because they're seen as real value, because they're because they have sporting fans, or because they bring in money for the clubs and things like that. And so often it starts in our schools, this competitive edge that's, I think, tips into an unhealthy balance. And I know kids who get really upset they don't want to be pitched against their friends. They want, on the one hand, they're taught to be kind and share, and on the other, they're taught to beat these people at everything. And I don't think it's necessarily a positive. You can compete with yourself to be the best that you can possibly be. But I don't know what you think about that. There was quite a lot in that sentence, really, that little onslaught, wasn't there?
I just feel like that, in competition in sports, it's amazing. You find little tiny articles where somebody's done something that's a big name, or you find ones that come out and it's a huge ordeal. And I kind of wonder where the resolve in it is.
Mm.
Because when a pattern continues, then it's just a pattern that continues. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like competition. I don't know.
It's an interesting word, competition, isn't it? And how it started, and this, we understand with coaches, with a lot of coaches, there's an awful lot of abuses attached to a lot of coaches with young, especially with young people, around young people. And we understand that. And I don't quite know why we don't make sort of like two and two, that these coaches either tended to be, players themselves or in the sport in some other way themselves. But how can they be like that on the field and with these youngsters and then be really lovely people off the field? And why would you be like that to a child anyway? I'm sure there are ways to promote that competitive spirit within a young person without having to abuse them to do it. Like I say, I always like the idea that you're competing, the person that you're competing with is yourself. Obviously, you're trying to beat the person next to them, but you're trying to do your ultimate best. But that might be me being very airy-fairy about it all. It'd be interesting to see what people have to say.
Think about, sportsmanship in, fighting the fair fight, in competing and doing your very best. And at the end of the day, you all walk home together.
So on the one hand, you've got this big upswell of societal understanding, compassion, action. And on the other, there's this big association with sport, which is domestic violence and abuse, both perpetrated by the fans, but also within the sport itself on lots of levels. And yet they can't tackle that. So why isn't there a competition between different teams where they're the ones to eradicate it?
Well, yeah, and I'm going back and thinking there was a guy that was a big football guy that actually hit his significant other on a elevator. I mean, cold-cocked her right in the face. Got off the elevator. Security was called. Security didn't know what to do with him because he was such a big guy and of this hotel. And she's laid out. And the only thing the security knew to do, it was all caught on video. Only thing the security knew to do was to kind of stand in front of her to protect her and keep his eye on the guy who just walked off. And when all that kind of came out and was around, there was women and men. Well, she started it because she spat on him, apparently. And I think that may have been in the film as well. And, then they go off and it's not even addressed. I mean, the guy was like probably 300 and some odd pounds, 6'5", and she was probably 5'5" if she was lucky. And she showed up at his, and that's, she showed up at his hearing and stuff. She was back with them. And people just don't understand that whole scenario. And I mean, why have an organization that has an organization attached to it that really doesn't do their work?
Yeah. No, I mean, if they've set up, the No More organisation, or they're a part of that, and yet, and it goes back to that thing, doesn't it? Leadership, accountability. If somebody just turn it, zero tolerance to these things, because people come into the sport as youngsters, and they will take their cue. They idolise their coaches. They idolise club owners and bosses. So they will do whatever those club owners and bosses want them to do and allow them to do. You know, there is a very strong bond there, which can either be a positive or a negative. So again, it comes from leadership and their role modelling of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable on and off whatever athletic field or pitch it is in every sport. Because sport is a fantastic thing. But maybe it goes back to the whole gladiatorial thing of but then you look at the Greeks and look where the Olympics came from, and it was just a lot of people running around naked, and there were things like, wasn't there sort of an Olympic medal for basket weaving or something? I mean, it wasn't all about physical prowess. That's the other thing. The Olympics were about other skills as well. And maybe that's part of what it is that, yes, there's the physical prowess, but maybe the other side of it, in terms of being role models and in terms of the mental and physical and emotional side around it, has been let slide for far too long, both in the treatment of young sportsmen and women and their coaching and their upbringings and the ones who teach them as well.
Well, it's like we were talking when we did our leadership, and also like when we're talking right now. Where is the community?
Mm.
Where is the guide for the community? Where is the holding of the community? We have a man that gets struck on a field, falls down, has cardiac arrest, game stops, everybody looks at it, everybody's like so for him. They send money to the we have a woman who was hit by a man, and the community comes out and the community says, well, she spat on him, or she caused that, and maybe that's a bad example, but at the same time, it's like they had to fight tooth and nail just to get that probably even in there. I could use the Brock Turner thing where the kid was an Olympic swimmer, committed rape on a woman. 2 men saved her, and they only gave him like 3 months.
Really?
In jail. Yeah. Because he's an Olympic swimmer. But and the community, I will say, the community came out in droves for support of her, and that was awesome to see. But I think, in that competitive kind of spirit, where is the support for the DV people? Where is the support for people that are assaulted? And I could go, Terry Crews is a big guy. He was assaulted. Terry Crews is an actor. He came out because he had been harassed by a man for years who had sexually assaulted him, and he hadn't told anybody. And he finally came out and told his wife. And
so like Brendan Fraser, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And where was the community in support of them when these things came out and before the Me Too? I mean, there's reasons why men don't feel comfortable in coming forward to say this horrible thing happened to them. And you just, I can't speak for a man. I just know in society that it's harder for them to verbalize and to push up against that. So need to wind down a little bit. and let this one go, I guess. We're not going to kind of finish it out, but if I was competitive, I would say that you probably won this one, sweetheart. We'll see you on the other side. Hello! Thank you for watching our channel today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for any new content, and find us on Patreon and your favorite podcasts. We hope we're one of them. Bye-bye!